All right, thanks everybody for joining in today on Addicts Living Free. I am your host, Mr. Matt Bartman. I got a great guest on the show today. Jay from down in Texas is going to share his truth with us, his story, his inspiration, and I hope you guys get something from this. Before we get started, Jay, you want to give a shout out to anybody in particular?
Yes, I do. I'd like to give a shout out to the Sober Tribe Vibe Inspiration Through the Storm Recovery Group. Mindy, Chrissy, Sarah, Heather, Angela, and I believe Tyler and Tanya. I'd also like to give a shout out to Phil Tyler with Against the Odds Recovery Group, and J.R. Weaver through Recovery Revolution, all Facebook groups. Great groups, great people.
Awesome. Well, if any of those guys listened off and they want to share their story, reach out to me and let's make it happen. So,
Yes, sir.
Give you guys a fun fact about Jay, or give you a fun fact here about Josh. Sorry, I always screw up first names for some reason. Fun fact about Josh is, he likes peanut butter and jelly with Fritos, but it has to be grape jelly, right?
Yes, it has and grape jelly. It tastes good.
Yeah, and I'll give you one other one. Peanut butter and jelly, strawberry peanut butter and jelly with Cool Ranch chips. How'd you ever come up with that combination? Just curious.
I was in a I was broke, homeless at the time, and I had just got done smoking some weed, and that's all I had in the seat beside me. So I just threw it all together, crunched it up. I ate it, and I'm like, wow. And I've been eating it ever since then.
That's pretty crazy, actually. It's funny when in certain positions you get creative, right? I broke my jaw. I had my jaw wired for 6 weeks, and something creative for food wise was a KFC with mushroom soup in the blender. So if you ever feel like adventuring out, you get all the seasoning from the chicken, and yeah, it wasn't too bad actually.
That's a new one.
Yeah. So the way I start every episode off here is, what's one thing you're grateful for today and why?
Today, one thing I'm grateful for is I'm gonna say the judge that's had told me I was worth it there. I was facing prison, but I was lucky enough to have a different judge at when I was going to sentencing, and he told me, he goes, I think you're worth it. He goes, I'm going to send you to rehab instead of sending you to prison. That's what I'm grateful for, because if it hadn't been for that, I would not be where I am right now.
That's pretty amazing. That's awesome. Thankfully for second chances, or at least somebody giving us a chance.
Yes, sir.
So, I want to ask you this: what was your childhood upbringing like? You want to start us off with that?
My childhood, my parents were great. I stutter a little bit. My parents were great. My mom was great. My dad worked really hard, but I had cancer when I was 4. I was diagnosed with lymphoma, and I was going to school at the same time. So imagine a little kid, bald head, completely white complected, blue lips and stuff because of the chemotherapy. That I got harassed, I got picked on, I got beat up on by other kids, called cancer kid, chemo kid. Oh, don't go near him. He's sick. He'll get you sick. So I was kind of shunned away by everybody else at such a young age, and it was devastating for me when I finally got clear of all the cancer, and I've been free of cancer since then. I just turned 42, so however many years that is, it's a long time. But I wasn't the same little child after that. I reclused. I stepped away from people. I stayed to myself, and I think that's a lot. That's what has a lot to do with my lifestyle. Because of that, it really traumatized me as such a little kid. It sucks.
Yeah.
Talking about it.
Yeah, growing up, like as you were getting older, did you continue like that isolation and pulling away from people even after, let's say growing your hair back and things like that?
Yeah, I stayed isolated all the way up through middle school. I think I had maybe 2 or 3 people that I hung out with. I got picked on because I was such a little kid throughout my schooling, and that was all due to because of having the cancer. By the time I got to high school, I had so much hate, anger, and resentment to everybody because nobody would come to me, and I blamed everybody because nobody would take the effort to come try and be my friend. But in all actuality, it was the other way around. I was too scared to try and make friendships because I didn't want to I was afraid of getting picked on. So that psychology, the addict mind telling you, oh, it's everybody else's fault and it's not yours. I think if I'd have been a little bit more brave, I probably would have had a better time at school. But like I said, my parents were great. My dad and my mom, they worked really hard. And neither one of them are addicts or alcoholics. I'm the only one besides my sister in our family that are addicts. And my sister's got 17 years clean now, and yeah, she's got a lot more time over me, and she's younger than me. Go figure.
You know what? We all just hit a different spot at a different time, right? So,
Yep.
um, so just one quick question: is she involved in the program, or
Believe it or not, she doesn't share her story much. She just stays out of the program. She's one of those people that she's not really much into voicing it and all that stuff. She likes to keep it to herself. But I find her every now and then how good a job she's doing because it's a hell of an inspiration. She's been busy raising kids and stuff right now. So, but I tell her every now and then you got to make a meeting. She's like, nope, I've been doing this long without them, so I'm good. I'm like, all right, what works for you works for you. May not work for me.
yeah? Well, and that's a nice thing, like, and that's why I like doing this podcast too, is because everybody has their own story and everybody's got their own way of, remaining abstinent and what works for them, right? And it's there's 1,000 different people, 1,000 different stories, and what works for one doesn't necessarily work for the other, right?
Yes, sir.
How old were you when you first got introduced to drinking or drugs, and you remember the effect?
Well, I'm gonna say by doctor's prescription, I was given Ritalin as a kid, and that kind of did something to me. It made me feel really, really good. My actual first touch to drugs was 16 with alcohol and pills because I would take those. I would steal my medication from my mom, and I would take it to school, and I'd pop 2 or 3 pills at once, and I'd be already drinking at school. So I was getting that mind altering effect at a young age, and within that year at 16, I had already dropped out of school. I just said, "Screw school. I'm not going to do this no more," because I was getting in trouble, getting in fights. So that's when my downward spiral started, and
Um,
it escalated.
sorry, say that again. It just cut out for a second there.
It escalated really fast after that.
Yeah, let's take us through that then, or kind of the progression of
Uh,
how it went.
so I quit school at 16. I was working by 17. I was already smoking weed by 18. I was drinking whiskey and doing cocaine. By the time I hit 21, I had already had 3 PIs. And you know what? I also did. I was introduced into speed at 16 too. That reminded me of being on Ritalin. So I did speed for a little while, and I didn't like where it was taking me. So I stepped away. But then within a year later, I was doing coke. So I got back into the speed at around 21. I mixed meth, heroin, and cocaine in it to use intravenously. Blacked out. It was on a Friday. I was in South Padre Island, and I woke up 3 days later in San Angelo, Texas. And if anybody knows that distance, that's a 7, 8 hour drive. Don't know how the hell I got there. Don't know what happened. And you would think that would stop somebody, but no. I did quit the hard drugs for a little while, but I drank heavily up until about 28. And then I picked up the intravenously using again to meth, and then I started doing meth and heroin for the next 10, 9, 10 years, and it just got worse and worse.
From that period there where you quit the drugs, was it a struggle when you started drinking heavily? Were you just kind of done with it, or was it a struggle like you had to use, I don't know, willpower at that time? And
I think I had to use willpower, but I also stayed drunk half the time too. So I basically just replaced the drugs with alcohol. At one point, I was drinking 3 to 4 6 packs a day of tall boys, or a gallon of Rich and Rare or a gallon of vodka within 3 days time from buying the bottle. And that's a lot of consumption right there for a little guy like me. At that time, I was only 120 pounds. It's a lot of alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever get into trouble in that period of time too, over that course through drinking?
Two failed relationships, a whole bunch of assaults, a DUI, a PI. Um, that was all within from about 23 to 27.
What is a PI? Just out of curiosity.
Intoxication.
Oh, public intoxication. Okay.
Yeah. I think I got like 6 of those in 4 years time. It's pretty bad.
Cops knew you by first name or what?
Huh?
I said, did the cops know you by first name?
Oh boy, did they. They knew me where I'm from. They knew me by my first name, my last name, my nicknames, hell, they might as well know me by my social security number too.
Crazy. That's crazy. So in that short period, did you ever think any of the problems had to correlate to drinking or the lifestyle? And did you ever try quitting on your own there?
I did it 20 right after I got my DWI. I realized, okay, well, I was pretty drunk. I blew a 2.61 or whatever. It was like 3 times the legal limit. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I need to cut back. So I figured I was going to go to AA so I can get it figured out. So I can, you know how most people are. I'm going to go learn how to drink so that way I don't get in trouble. I didn't necessarily think that I had a problem. I always told everybody I just love beer. I mean, I love the taste of beer. That's all it is. But and I kept at that point I started to say that I was an alcoholic, but then I had friends and family telling me, "Well, you're not an alcoholic." And so my answer to that was, "Okay, if I'm not an alcoholic, then when have you never not seen me with a beer in my hand?" But I still didn't stay in the AA group because once the 4th step came around, I dodged. I was gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people can relate with that one.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll kind of maybe, I don't know, loop back around a little bit or touch on that a little bit later or how it plays later into your story. From 27 on there, you said you started getting into the hard drugs more. How did that play out in your life?
Well, the relationship that I was in from about 23 to 27, I really I almost cussed. I apologize. I really effed that relationship up. I'm a really bad cursor, so I'm fighting really hard not to say any cuss words.
I'll tell you something right now. There's no censorship on here. You can fucking swear.
Oh, oh, fucking A, right.
No censorship. You know, we're not like affiliated to 12 step, just so you know. Actually, I'm supposed to let you know that before we get started. I'm not affiliated to 12 step. There is no censorship. You can say whatever you want, however you want, you know. So
all right. Now I feel a lot more fucking comfortable.
Cheers.
So okay, so I ruined that relationship. I got an assault against her and stuff, but I was hiding the drugs at the near the end of our relationship, and then she told me we were over, and then right after that I lost my grandfather. He was my mentor, my hero, my best friend. He taught me how to be an electrician and stuff, and when he passed away, I just completely within a couple of months I went completely downhill. I just picked up the drugs again. I just said, screw it. I didn't want to feel this pain because me and my grandfather, the last things we said to each other was I told him that he didn't know what he was talking about. And I turned him down when he asked for help because he needed someone to help take care of him. And he wanted me to do that for him and at his last parts of his stage. And I turned away from him, and I couldn't live with myself after that when he passed away. I hated myself for so long because of that. The man that showed me how to be respectful and work hard and all that stuff, I turned away when he needed me the most because I wanted to drink and party and do my stupid stuff. Excuse me. It's still a touchy subject on the heart. but I have forgiven myself for that, and I'm sure he's proud of me now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when all that heavy stuff picked up, and I ended up within a couple of years of picking up the drugs, I ended up being homeless for a while. Uh, I wrecked a vehicle 3 different times. Went to jail like 17 times within from 2007 to 2018. I probably went to jail 20 something times in that short span of period. Just and if you get a chance to see my mug shots, you can see the real rapid progression of my addiction. It's just I looked like a damn skeleton bad, and I'm thinking that I'm all good. I'm okay. I got this. I know what I'm doing. I can put it down anytime. Nah, it had me, and it had its chokehold on me for a long time.
You know what's funny is when I was looking at pictures back then, like after I first got clean, I looked like a gray green in the pictures, and I thought it was the camera that was broken. I never realized like it was really capturing the true look of how I looked, you know, like just gross, you know.
Oh yeah.
So how what was your bottom then, or what did your bottom look like before you got into recovery?
My bottom my bottom was okay. I was slinging dope at this time, but I was slinging heroin and slinging meth at the same time. So I had a constant amount of drugs with me. And that was the hardest part. There is what because I had an endless supply. But my bottom was when I was waking. I'd wake up in the middle of the wake up in the morning. I'd do a massive shot in the morning. I mean, 3/4 of the syringe full with meth and heroin. Go out through my day, and then I'd go to bed passing out with a bottle in my hand at night just so I could go to sleep. I would drink myself completely shit faced, so drunk, so that way I can pass out, and then I get up the next morning and do the same thing over and over. And I did that for years, and it. I'm lucky to be here. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it becomes a lifestyle, right? Like, you know, I got hurt when I was 19, um, and I had no responsibilities. Like, I didn't have to go to work, and my life was just doing drugs, getting drugs, doing drugs, getting drugs. Like that was the life. Like it became a lifestyle, and I don't know how else to really describe that, but that was everything, right?
Oh yeah, that's what my world revolved around. And that's now that I look at it, it's kind of pathetic, but that's that disease taking control. And at that point, I would argue with people, telling everybody it's not a fucking disease. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Everybody, it's a choice. We chose to do the drugs. We know what's going to happen. So we're the ones that made that choice. It's not a damn disease because that's just a way for people to whine and cry and make themselves feel good about it. Well, now that I'm in recovery, I completely did a 180 on that. I now see it as a mental obsession of the mind. It's a disease, and I wish I could go back and slap myself and say, "You're a fucking moron. You don't know."
Yeah, it's the education goes a long way, right? Like education's only part of the practice, and then the other part's actually doing the work, right? So
Yes, sir.
how did you ever get into recovery then? Like, okay, let's go with this one. What's your clean date today?
My clean date is 3/11 of 2019.
March 11, 2019. So we were just talking about this 3.5 years, you know,
Yeah.
today
Actually,
or
next month of
next month.
years. Yes,
So
sir.
that's
So
awesome.
how I got into recovery, like I said earlier, a kind judge found found grace and or showed grace. February 17th of 2019, I had already gotten busted a year prior with two possession of under 1 gram of meth and one of heroin, 2 different times. So I was fighting it because I believed I was innocent, that the God planted it on me and all that stuff. I was so screwed up and shit. I didn't know what the hell was going on. But after I signed that on February 17th of 2019, a 5-year prison sentence, they let me go. So the judge says, okay, we'll see you next month. I'm like, the fuck you will, motherfucker. So I go out and I get completely tore up from the floor up. I mean, everything you can think of, I was doing it. So March 11th of 2019, which is the day that I am forever grateful for, I walk into court because my family talked me into it. I was going to run away and just say, nope, they can catch me later. But so I show up into court, my name gets called up, and I walk up to the podium, and I didn't even look up when I was walking up. When I get up there, when I finally look up, I look at the judge, and I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on here? I got a completely different judge. That's God working in mysterious ways. And that's when he told me, he goes, I know who you are. I know you're a good person. He goes, do you want a chance at a better life? And I'm like, there ain't no chance at a better life for me. He goes, well, what happened to you? I said, man, I got addicted to drugs. I can't quit. And he's like, well, I think you're worth it. And a DA pops off right next to me, and she goes, no, he deserves to go to prison. He's never going to change. And me and my little smart ass mouth, I look at her and I say, look, you stupid bitch. I said, you send me to prison. I'm going to go in. I'm going to come out worse than what I was when I fucking went in. And then I ain't never going to change. And the judge goes, that's why I'm not going to send you there. He goes, I'm tearing up this prison sentence. He goes, I'm going to send you to rehab because I think you're worth it. That moment right there, all the weight on my shoulders was lifted. I knew I was going to jail, but I was okay with it. But the bad thing was I had to be sitting in jail for 45 days detoxing, and there was no medical treatment, no nothing that you was going to get. It was going to be just horrible, horrendous pain. But I made it 37 of those days. I was puking, hurting, felt like I was dying. But the 45th day when they let me out, I had the chance to run, but I told my family, I said, no, I'm going to go ahead and go through this rehab thing because I know I need help. And that's how my story is in getting into recovery. And I've been blowing and going, I've been running up that ladder of success since then.
That's awesome. How long was your rehab for? Yeah.
So hold on one second. I got to unlock the door. My partner's here.
We'll just take a small intermission right here.
About that. This was a cognitive self-change rehab, state funded. So it's one of those ones, it's based on your behavior, on how long you stay. So it's with the way my mind works. I'm going to go through there. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to show these people how it goes. My stay was only supposed to be 5 to 7 months. I ended up being in that place for 11 months. So I ended up at one point, there's a disciplinary action where you got to sit at a cubicle because you keep getting in trouble. You got to sit at a cubicle. You wear a red table badge and face the wall. And you got to get up 4:30 every morning, sit at that table. You cannot leave. You got to be expedited around by an expediter. You can't talk to nobody. You can't do anything but sit at that thing all day long. And you can't leave that spot until 9:00 at night. I sat there for almost 4 months because I had things my way. But when I finally gave in and said, all right, maybe I should try this, things got a whole lot better. I got out of there within I still kept getting in trouble, but not as bad. I got out of there another 7 months later. So 11 months, just shy of 1 year I was in that rehab. But I can tell you right now, I hated that fucking place, and I still will always hate that fucking place. But I have a better respect for the state-funded rehab because that changed the way I thought about things. It taught me how to take that. If you can catch yourself in that split, like millisecond, and you say, okay, wait a minute. When I did something like this in my past, I got in trouble like this. Do I really want to go through that shit again? So you basically can do a complete 180. Said, no, that's going to get me in trouble. I'm not even going to go there. So yeah, that program saved my life.
Awesome. Yeah, I believe that, you have no control over that first thought, but you do with the preceding thoughts or the second and third thought. Like you have that choice, right? But that first thought, like you're stuck with it, right? It's just, what do you do with the after ones? In that 7 months there, what was did you set any goals while you were still in there?
Well, yeah, I did set some goals for when I got out. My goals was I was going to get my electrician's license back. that I was my thought was I was going to go back to my home county and try and start off anew there. But then when I came back to came to my actual release time, I decided against going back home because I figured, if I had gotten a little bit smarter and thought about it more once I got further along in the program. And I was sitting here thinking, I said, well, if I go back home, I'm probably going to fucking go back to drugs and alcohol. So maybe I should try this 90 for 90, stay in a different city. And that was my main goal, is just to not get in trouble and go back to doing drugs. That was my main goal. So I just focused on doing a 90 for 90 when I get out, staying a sober home, which I did. And I ended up staying in a sober home for a little over a year because I didn't feel comfortable going out on my own yet, because my recovery was the most important thing to me at that moment. Everything else was secondary. Of course, I mean, it's the way it should be. It still is now. But during that first year of being out of rehab, was all I thought about. I went to meeting after meeting after meeting almost every single day for a little over a year. I had a couple of sponsees. That was all I was worried about, was just getting to meetings and working.
I want to ask you this, and maybe you can shed some light on this one. Was getting out of, like, coming to the end and going out on your own, what were some things you had to put into place to make sure that you stayed on this path?
Well, that kind of, now that you ask me that, the funny thing is about that, what they usually have a preparation course for you to get out, be reintroduced into society and all that stuff. So I was being released during the time of COVID. So I had to emergency release 27 of us so that way they could drop the population down. So our reintroduction to society courses and all that stuff, there was 3 courses you got to take, never happened. We were told on a Friday that by next Monday they were letting us out, and they were basically kicking us out the door saying, okay, we hope you can make it, but we got to let y'all go. So the only things I did that within that 3 days time, I called a bunch of sober houses. I raised money. Told my sister, I said, I can't come back home. I can't come back home. Give me some money. Get me in a sober house. So I got me in a sober house, and that I was going frantic. I thought I was going to go down a bad road when that happened. So yeah, I was scared in that first little bit, being going kicked back into the society. I hope that touched base to what you were pretty much asking.
Yeah, like what would well, I'll follow up with this one then. Like, what are some suggestions you would give to people that are getting out of a situation like that? Like, what would you tell them?
Getting out of rehab and going it back into society.
Yeah, like what's your
First,
advice there? What did you
for,
do, and what's your advice?
first and foremost, if you want to stay clean and sober, don't fucking go back home. Find yourself a new city to go to. There's a lot of resources, because if you didn't go use the resources that were available to you at home, you definitely ain't gonna fucking use them when you go home now. I mean, 9 times out of 10, when somebody leaves rehab and goes back to their home county, within months they're back out doing the same thing. So my suggestion is to go to a different city and start completely anew. They say change people, places, and things, and I firmly believe that is the 3 main keys to being able to stay clean and sober.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing. Like, I grew up in a little town of 5,000 people, moved to the city, ended up moving back in with my mother. But then after I went to rehab, moved back in with my mother, when I got out on my own, I had my number unlisted because cell phones weren't the most popular thing then. Had my number unlisted. People couldn't find me. Not that I was worried about people finding me, but I just didn't want to take the chance to be connected with people that were still using or part of my old life, right? So I
Oh yeah.
moving
Oh,
away or staying away from old places and people, right?
oh yeah. For me, when I got out, I had my sister give me a completely different phone number. I didn't even touch my old Facebook account. I started a new one up, and anybody that was still using, besides 3 people that I still trust with my life, that are like family, I don't hang out with them, but I'll talk to them. But other than that, anybody else that I used to do drugs with that try and friend request me now on Facebook, I completely ignore it. I don't even mess with it. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah. What are some gifts of like what are some unexpected gifts that you've kind of received since getting clean here? Or some gifts that you might not have been expecting?
Unexpected gifts. Let's see. Unexpected gifts. Well, I'll tell you one thing. My sponsor, I consider him. I wouldn't say a person's a gift, but had I not met him when I did when I was in rehab, I would have said screw it and send me to prison. This man's he's got 21 years, 22. He's been sober since 1999. So whatever that is, 21 years, something like that, 22 years. I he's like my rock, my best gift that I've gotten in recovery. Um, I'd say that I got a 1972 Monte Carlo that I got from my father. That's a nice gift.
That is a nice gift.
Any I can't really think of anything else of gift wise besides the gift of uh a successful life. I've got the most wonderful relationship the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. And I'm also the healthiest I've ever been in a relationship. So I'd consider that a great gift from God. Um, I've got wonderful friends that are in recovery. I mean, my gift basically every day is to wake up clean and sober and go to bed clean and sober. That's the best gift I can ever get.
Yeah, true that, right? And to be free from that obsession, right? Like
Oh yes.
that obsession. How long did it take you before you felt like I'm gonna be okay and everything's gonna be okay?
Oh shit. Uh I would say up until probably about a year ago. Because even though I was going headstrong with my recovery, I have relapse dreams real bad. I had in the sober house that I was at one point, 12 of the people had relapsed in the house, and I mean the drugs were rampant in there, and I was around it, and that was a struggle for me, but I made it through it. But now that I'd say about a year ago, I'm comfortable with where I'm at. I'm not complacent because I make sure I do not get complacent because complacency is the death of most recovery. Um, yeah, I'd say about a year ago.
That's why I like to ask that question because it doesn't happen overnight, right? Like it's a process and it takes work and effort, to kind of get to that place. Um,
Yes.
what was some of the struggles that you overcame that first year?
Wanting to go back home because I miss my family, so that'd be one of the struggles. But knowing that I can't go back home, that's really a hard struggle. That's to me, I think that's a really big struggle because where I'm from, I was big and everybody knew me. Where I'm at now, it's like I kind of feel small, but it's okay now. Another struggle with like I was really struggling mentally with my first year out of being out of rehab with wanting. I was kind of what do they say? Not fantasizing about.
Romance.
I would say fantasizing. I would think back of times where there was actually some good times when I was high or drunk when there wasn't no trouble or drama, and I'd be like, I wish I could go back like that. And then I have to slap myself and just wait a minute. You can't think like that because when you think like that, you're gonna think it's gonna be okay, and you know what's gonna happen. You've already felt the progression get worse every damn time that you went back out. So get it out of your head. So yeah, I still struggle now. I mean, I think all of us do. I had a struggle just recently. Me and my partner, I'm like as you know, I'm an electrician, and I had stripped a bunch of copper. Yeah, didn't think nothing of it. I've taken it in to get money, but this time I had I had about $400 worth of copper, which really ain't much. But as soon as I got that money in my hand, my mind just completely went freaking AWOL. Everything inside me just started cringing, and I was fiending for the dope, and I wanted to get drunk. I mean, so overwhelming that I started shaking and I was crying. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking feel like this. And my mind's telling me, well, go get high. It'll take care of it. And my girlfriend was my partner was with me, and we sat and talked about it right there in the car. I said, I'm not leaving this spot until we talk about this. And that in itself is a gift alone, to have somebody right there beside you that's willing to help you get through the struggle when it actually happens.
I'm 40, so we're pretty close to the same age on this, and which tells me we kind of grew up same generation. How hard is it to express your feelings, or how difficult was it learn to communicate or express them?
Oh shit.
Yeah, and maybe tell me the benefits of learning, like since you've learned to do it, explain the benefits. I wonder how it's improved your life.
So back before I went to rehab, my thoughts, feelings, and beliefs were like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I didn't care. Now that I'm out of recovery, now that I'm out of rehab and recovery, my thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, I pay attention to everything that I feel now, so that way I can express myself in a positive way now. Because back then the negative way didn't do shit for me. But there are times when I don't want to feel, where my mind tells me that you're feeling weak when you get all lovey-dovey, or when you feel like you're really struggling. Uh, Sometimes it's really hard to want to reach out, but I make myself do it despite of the fear, despite of what my mind tells me, because I know that if I don't reach out, then I'm going to eventually go back down that rabbit hole. So growing up, I grew up with a tough child, tough people. So I didn't feel comfortable with sharing my feelings and stuff. I was all tough. I don't got feelings. I'm a fucking man. I realize now that it takes a man to cry. I mean, a man can cry. A man can be not okay. We don't have to be strong all the time for everybody else. There's times when we need someone to be there, be strong for us.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Um, oh, I was just you said something there, and it made me think of something that I wanted to ask, and I totally forget what it was. How about I'll ask this one then. Um, Uncomfortableness, like the willingness to get uncomfortable. You know, how did you do that? Maybe what areas, like how willing were you to get uncomfortable to get where you are today?
Mm, you know how willing? Well, I tell you one thing. When I finally got to where to make myself uncomfortable was when I actually did my fourth step when I was in rehab with my sponsor. I I didn't want to share all that stuff because, as you know, or like most of us all know, that when a four step comes, we don't want to face our own bullshit. Well, I had just got done with my fourth step, and I'd done some pretty nasty shit. And that's when I realized that I'm not the victim of my story; I'm the villain. So right after that, I did a I wrote a poem. No, I'm not gonna. We'll do that one for another time. I wasn't going to read the poem now, but I forgot something got brought up about the poem that I read while I was in rehab, and I just went on a complete storyline of how my whole life was and everything I did and all that stuff, and it felt really good to do that because I felt free. Now, being with my partner now, when I first met her, that's the first thing I did. I put myself in an uncomfortable position. I told her every single goddamn horrible, shitty fucking thing that I did because I wanted her to know who I was. That way there was nothing that way there was nothing to hide. And being being vulnerable can help you in the long it will help you in the long run. Because when you try and make yourself to where you're all tough and strong and all that stuff, all you're doing is just making yourself weaker. That's my firm belief on that. So being uncomfortable is good because that gives you a chance to grow.
Yeah, and it also like the stuff that you learn about yourself, and when you just said putting it out on the table there, like being authentic today, right? Like not really giving a fuck what people think, so to speak, as long as I try to be a good human, of course. Um, just being okay with self, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, oh, fuck, I'm totally just kind of off a little bit today. Okay, let me ask you this one. Some of the fears you've overcome. That one I like to ask.
Some of the fears that I've got now, or like now, or that I work.
Overcome. Like something fears that you might have had that you know what, don't have today that you've overcome since getting clean.
Okay, I've got one that's perfect. The work I do right now, I install home standby generators and I do solar and battery backup for residential homes. Okay, a little over a year ago, I was going to start this company, but my partner, she did my resume for this company and all that stuff, and I told her, I said, I ain't going to be able to do this. I said, I don't have the knowledge. She goes, you need to not don't be so afraid. She goes, what's the worst that could happen? I go, well, I look like a damn failure. She goes, yeah, but we're looking like a failure, and it's actually trying is a lot better than looking like a failure or not looking like a failure and wondering whether you could do it. And now, within the year, I'm a certified generator technician for Generac. I am also a certified solar and battery technician. Plus, I'm a licensed electrician. On top of that, so stepping into the fear is great because for me, once I got over that little extra nudge and I stepped in that fear, I became even more powerful. I mean, I know I wouldn't say powerful, but I became something greater than what I was a year ago.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Um, how about what are some qualities you're most proud of today of yourself?
Qualities that I'm most proud of. I'm not afraid to tell anybody my story. I will walk up to a complete stranger. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, it was an actual ex-police officer, and we were talking, and he said something about somebody that was struggling, and I looked at him. I said, "Man," I said, I'm a drug addict, ex-drug addict." I said, "I'm in recovery," and I just completely for 45 minutes just told him my whole story, and he's like, "That was awesome." I go, it felt good. It felt really somebody I don't even know, and just telling my story. And I have no pride, but I see I don't let now my ego is not in my way.
Mhm.
Tell somebody the darkest, dirtiest thing that I've done in my addiction, and then right on top of it, tell them the best thing that I've ever done in my recovery.
That's awesome. That makes me smile. You know, like to not be weighed down by your past, you know, be weighed down by your past, right? So, I'm gonna ask you a couple more then. So, you want to share with me what freedom from addiction looks like in your life then?
Freedom from addiction looks like it looks like success. It looks like love. It looks like there are struggles, so expect it, but it'll pass. Just an all around freaking beautiful life. I mean, when they say that the promises do come true, they're not lying. That everything that as long as you work the program like you're supposed to, and you put yourself in positions that can get you back into where you're at, and if you first and foremost, you got to reach out if you're struggling. You cannot hold that shit in. You pick up that goddamn phone and call somebody. And oh shit, now I lost track. um, yeah, it's just recovery is beautiful. It's great. I would not trade any bad day in recovery for any good day drinking and using at all.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you on that one. Okay, let me ask you this one then. Higher power, spiritual connection, do you have that in your life and how does it impact your life?
My higher power, yeah, I believe in God, and I believe that if it weren't for Him, I definitely would not be here to this day. I don't now. With that being said, I don't force the God as a HP on other people. I mean, that's for me, but it may not be for other people. Um, I've got friends that don't believe in God that they use. I got a friend of mine that uses a doorknob as his higher power. I mean, if it works, it works. So yeah, God is a big part of my life. I may not pray every day like I should, but I do talk to God throughout the day sometimes. I always gotta let go and let God, because if I try and take control, it's gonna get all fucked up quick.
I get it. Yep. Yep. Um, okay. Uh, I'll finish on this one then. What are some goals you're hoping to achieve over the next year?
Goals I plan to achieve within the next year.
Yeah, we'll say, or between 1 and 5 years.
It
What's something you're working towards?
One of my goals is I plan to be able to get achieve my journeyman's license for journeyman electrician within 5 years. My goal is to have my master's, and by then, if I when I do have my master's, I'll lease my license out to the company that I'm working for if I'm still with them, and I'm still going to work on top of that so I can make extra money. I mean, I went hard when it came to drugs and alcohol. I'm going to go freaking hard when it comes to working and making that money. Uh, in a 10-year plan, I hope to have my money to Monte Carlo nice and going. Those are my main goals. Maybe marry my partner
Nice.
if she'll have me.
If you stay on this path, I have a feeling she might keep you. Yeah. Okay, I'll end on this one then. What are you most passionate about, or what gets you excited today?
Man, sharing, talking to people. I mean, my I like I said, I share my story with anybody, and I'm not afraid to. I mean, I know when I smile, my customers can see my teeth, and I look at them. I say, you know what? You don't even have to worry about those teeth. That's from a past. I said that I'll tell them that. Look, I'm clean and sober this long. That's my passion. I mean, I want to tell my story. I talk about my recovery all the time with everybody, even new people that start work. I flat out tell them right off the bat, man. I said if you're doing drugs, I hope and pray that you find a good life, because I don't live that life anymore, and I tell my story, and I don't have any fears about it. That's my passion right there. I share any chance I get. I do daily motivational posts on Facebook. I'm in a part of like 30 freaking recovery groups that every morning I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I post 2 or 3 photos to every single group. I would say that's pretty much one of my passions.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
If it help one person find recovery, then all the fucking bullshit that I put myself through would be worth it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's my mission statement, is to create hope and inspire people. Recovery is possible, and life can be amazing, right? I've gotten a life worth living. I like to say, this program didn't just save my life; it gave me a life, right? And it taught me all my coping mechanisms. It taught me all my life skills, because I had absolutely none, right? Like, it was people who live by abstinence that showed me there's another way of life, and taught me how to do it and communicate and pick up the phone, and even just little daily habits, like making my bed and brushing my teeth, because I had none of those skills before, right? So,
Right?
okay, one more. How about accountability today? You know, sure with me
Account.
about yeah,
I have times where I struggle with that, but 9 times out of 10, when I make a mistake, within within a I'd say within an hour or so, I apologize for my fuck up. When it comes to work, at work, I within an hour or so, like this instance with me and my boss, we got into it one day, and I threatened to whoop his ass and all that shit. And about 45 minutes later, I texted him through a text message. I said, I know I should probably call you, but I'm still a little bit pissed. I just want to let you know right now. Said I apologize for the way I spoke to you. I shouldn't have done that. You are the boss. I was in the wrong, and it took it in the past. You would never hear those words come out of my mouth. They'd be like, "Fuck you! It was your fucking fault. You can kiss my ass." Now I do my best to accept be accountable for my stupidity and do better. I try. I'm not perfect.
none of us are. I'm guilty of that one too. I'm human. I make mistakes, but you know what? I'm not going on my way to harm people today, or hurt people, or be selfish, self-centered, right? So it's
Yes.
okay to make mistakes. I think that pretty much brings us to the end of our time that we got here. I'll let you close it up with us. I love for you to share maybe something we haven't talked about, or something you'd love to leave with the listeners.
Oh yeah, I've got one thing for sure. One of the things that helps me through every single day, so that way I don't get wrapped up in my mind too much, which it does tend to happen. Here's a saying that I live by or go by. If it's out of your control, it deserves freedom from your mind. That is one of the biggest sayings right there that helps me the most throughout every single day. And other people's opinions of me is none of my business. Those two right there, if you can master those two, or at least come close to to practicing those two principles throughout your day, I guarantee you your life and your day is going to go a lot easier. And that's a promise. Excuse me. That's about the best advice I could give. Besides, don't relapse. Pick up the damn phone.
Yeah, 100%. Or get out and connect with people and get out of yourself. You know,
Yeah.
Get out of yourself. Try and help somebody when you're in that situation, right? Like, there's a lot of power in helping others, right?
Yes, sir. It is. We can only keep what we have by giving it away.
Truth. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you, Josh, for sharing your truth with us, sharing your time with us, sharing your story and inspiration. I really appreciate it. I really love this conversation that we got to have. You know, even though we're, I don't know, hours away, right? So, you know, so thank you so much. And for everybody else out there listening, I hope you guys enjoyed this. You know, if you want to know more, reach out to me. If you want to be a guest, be sure to reach out. You know, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. You know, reach out to me. We can hook you up and talk and see if we can get you to share your story too. And I will leave you the same way I leave you every episode, and that's make lots of memories, take lots of pics, show the world your smile. Thanks.
Thank you. God bless you, brother.